a real important campaign, Michigan Citizens for Strong and Safe Communities. And it's really related to a ballot question that's going to be on the August 5th ballot. And it's really something that has been an amazing compromise. It has a long history. For many decades, Michigan has debated personal property tax and how to modify it, how to adjust it. It's been in place for 110 years as part of local taxes, but in more and more recent years, it's become a disincentive for investment, which is really one of the key things that is of concern. With NAFTA, it was one of the reasons that businesses said they were going offshore, going way out of the country. And then as different states began to modify them, it became an issue because our neighboring states around us, for example, had either eliminated or modified their personal property tax, and we didn't want to have something that would cause us to lose an opportunity, and so it became more and more important. And as we moved on to it, what happened is it meant that we had to really look seriously at how we do it without hurting communities. And that's what really was the challenge and has always been the challenge, because it was a strong part of the tax base for many communities. To just have it eliminated would have devastated some of our more mature communities, particularly communities that host employment, that have large plants or large companies that employ a lot of people. So that's how we got here. And so we want to talk about this, and we're going to start with Captain Christopher Wondrich, and he is from the Oakland County Sheriffs. Because one of the things that we're going to display today is that this is an unusual thing for Michigan, in that the communities that make up both the business communities and the local government communities are together as one in supporting this proposal. It is a compromise that achieves the goals of these sometimes perceived as competing entities. And so we're going to start with Brad, and he'll address us first. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. One. Yeah, that's it, right?
Yep. Hi, thank you. Just on behalf of the Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Michael Bouchard, we're committed to support this bill. We recognize how important it is to the community, for our citizens as well as everybody else, and we show our support. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Jerry Grubb, and Jerry is with We Discover Child Care and We Discover Child Care and Enrichment Center in Waterford, and he represents a small business owner. Please.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for inviting me to this event. Personal property tax elimination for my business is certainly important to me. It's the first time in over 100 years that small businesses like myself will not have to pay this really kind of a burdensome tax. I don't know if everybody knows how it works, but if I buy a piece of equipment, a tax assessor will come in after I fill out a form, have a two-page form at least, have my accountant go through the form, charge me to make sure the form is correct, send the form to the county sends a tax assessor out, they look at the equipment along with everything else in the building and say, you owe us this much. When that piece of property, whether it be for my place, the children's large manipulative toys, the small manipulatives, puzzles, games, chairs, tables, computers, high chairs, everything that's in there, I get to pay tax on that forever. When the accounting sheets say, oh, that's fully depreciated, it's not worth anything anymore, I still pay property tax on that. Other surrounding states don't even have this tax, making Michigan much less competitive. So I'm glad to see that this initiative has happened, that the state legislature and the citizens are hopefully going to vote yes on this, like I'm going to vote yes on this. It's very important, I think, that people realize that this not only does not change revenue stream, it makes the revenue stream better for these trucks and these people behind me to make sure that they get their money instead of political quibbling every year in the budget, to maintain their budget stream. That this will be better for police, fire, libraries, roads, schools, this whole elimination of the property tax and the things that go with it to replace that revenue stream make it much better for everyone. I'd like to introduce, I'm sure he can tell you more about the revenue stream, Chief Murray.
Thank you. As a public safety officer, I know firsthand how important it is to have steady, reliable funding for services. We need this funding to keep our local communities safer and get the equipment that we need. For many cities like Dearborn, we've been forced to live with inadequate and often irregular funding for local services. At the same time, we also know that our local businesses have been plagued with this unfair tax, and let's face it, fair or not, getting rid of a tax means that people are going to lose revenue. Now we finally have a solution that not only creates a more reliable system for funding essential local services, including police and fire, but it does so without raising taxes. I applaud the governor, the business community, and the public sector for coming together for a solution that benefits all of us greatly. I hope everyone will join me in voting yes on August 5th, and thank you. I'd like now to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Sharon Rothwell of Masco Corporation.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Rothwell from Masco Corporation, which is located in Taylor, Michigan, just down the road. And I also serve as the vice chair of the Michigan Manufacturers Association on their board of directors. As you've heard, Michigan, small businesses, manufacturers, along with local governments, have agreed for a long time that the personal property tax is a bad tax, both unfair and uncompetitive. It's unfair because, as you heard, a piece of equipment is not only taxed once, but it's taxed over and over and over, and has been for over 100 years. It's uncompetitive because, as you also heard, most of the surrounding Great Lakes states learned a long time ago that this is not a tax that prompts growth, job creation, and it is not necessarily the best revenue stream for our local governments to make sure that we have our essential services and all the things that we all depend on as citizens provided. So it's uncompetitive and unfair. The bills that were signed into law less than a week ago are a significant policy change for Michigan, and they'll make our state more competitive for both jobs and investment. According to the Anderson Economic Group, who did a study of the personal property tax, this reform will create up to 15,000 jobs and will increase business investment by $450 million. So not only have the governor and the legislature reformed the personal property tax, starting with small business first, but now there is a comprehensive solution, as you've heard, that ensures full reimbursement to local communities so that they can provide the services that we all value and need. This proposal now enjoys broad-based support because of the way they've now crafted it and the recent changes they made. It's supported by Democrats and Republicans, public safety organizations, local governments, school organizations, and the business community. It's clearly a win-win for all of us. I want to remind voters that when they vote for this, hopefully with a yes vote on August 5th, this is not a tax increase for anyone. It simply assures the local government funding will be there for our services. So now I would like to turn it over to Charlie Pride from Ford Motor Company.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning. I'm Charlie Pride, Regional Director of Governmental Affairs at Ford Motor Company, and I really appreciate being in this august group of men. If I have the big one, I imagine this is a good place to do it. First thing is, of course, Michigan, as we all know, is critical to Ford Motor Company. Ford in Michigan employs more than 43,000 people, and we purchase on an annual basis more than $16 billion worth of goods and services from Michigan-based suppliers. Reform of taxes on manufacturing equipment in Michigan is critical to Ford and manufacturing investment and jobs. 80% of Ford's property taxes in North America are paid in Michigan. Only 50% of our property is in Michigan. This tax on manufacturing equipment is the biggest driver of this disparity. About 90% of Ford's industrial property taxes are paid in Michigan. Recent changes to Michigan's business taxes have increased Ford's cost of doing business in Michigan. Ford's Michigan business taxes today are more than they were in 2011. From the outset, we worked for this reform to be win-win, working closely with our great partner and friend, Mayor Jack O'Reilly. This is because Ford places a high value on the communities where we work and live, and we believe it important that these communities thrive. The proposals before Michigan's voters reach a positive long-term solution which balances the community's needs for stable and adequate funding and the need to reform this tax. We are proud to be members of this coalition, and we're hopeful that Michigan voters will vote yes on this ballot measure to make communities safe and strong. So I'll turn it over to my good friend, Mayor Jack O'Reilly.
Thanks, Charlie. And one thing you mentioned that's really true is this tax particularly created a conflict between major businesses and the communities in which they operated. And it just made no sense. You know, we would, what would happen is, under the system, we had to evaluate and try and determine what the taxable value was of very sophisticated equipment used in manufacturing operations or other types of businesses. So we're making our estimate. They've got to represent what they have, and historically each one would leverage a little on their own side. Where would we end up going? We'd go to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, where we would wait 3 to 4 years for a decision. But we were in an adversary position all that time. It seemed like we were in conflict. It certainly was not good for our relationships, and neither of us liked it. And I think that's why, with Charlie and Ford Motor Company, we said, we support getting rid of it, but we have to have a way to do it that isn't going to create harm in the local governments. And this bill does it. And here's what we have to explain, the mechanics of why the vote. Because in order to do this and replace the funds, there's actually 3 ways that the funds are going to be achieved for this. One is expiring tax credits. In the former administration, tax credits were issued and commitments were made for those, but they weren't fully, they were based on things going forward or happening, and those didn't. So those are going to expire. So the eligibility for those credits expire. It means that the state will have revenue that has been pledged and set aside that now they can use for other things. That revenue is assigned and helps this. Another is the use tax, which is a constitutional tax that's collected by the state, and they're going to assign a portion of that to this replacement because they have identified that they have the capacity to do that. And the last is a tax that's being imposed on the personal property taxpayers now for police, fire, ambulance, and jails for essential services, or an essential services tax. So the vote is to authorize that, to say that the voters agree that that new tax, which will not be paid by anyone but the industrial taxpayers who've been paying it already, are paying more than that. We've been paying the tax that we're eliminating. So they will be contributing that. It will not be on residential, it won't be on commercial, that are not impacted by that. So it's not a tax increase for anyone. Overall, it will be a decrease in the personal property taxes to a level that makes us very competitive, but no one else will see new taxes, and the governments will be made whole, meaning the services that you rely on, the services that we need to make sure that we have a high quality of life in all of our communities, they will be preserved. And that's why, as was said, we have the police officers we have the police officers and we have the firefighters at the state level saying, yes, we support this. We have communities, whether they're townships, cities, villages, whatever, Michigan Municipal League, the Township Association, the County Association, all are supporting this. So on the public side, we're behind it. And then on the business side, it's the same wonderful thing where everyone from the state chamber, from the local chambers, from business groups, organizations, manufacturers, everyone's saying this is the right way to go. So all we need, and what's important now, is for the voters who aren't going to see any increase in their taxes to support the bill in August. Vote yes in August so that this can go forward, and Michigan will put ourselves in an incredibly competitive place to attract new investment, to attract new business, particularly some of the high-tech and developing businesses, because they won't have to pay a tax on their investment in technology. So this is the message. We need everybody's support. Thank you, and we'll take questions from